What is up, my bodyweight warriors, and welcome back. Me and my boy Archdog, we are just outside in the sun. I've been spending the last hour and a bit replying to DMs on Instagram because I put up something saying I was going to be answering a Q&A in today's video, which kind of reminds me what it's time for. And that is another episode of Coffee Time. Most importantly, we got some questions. I put out a story on Instagram asking if you had any questions you want me to answer in a Q&A style. As you can probably tell by the title of the video, a lot of the questions I receive was to do with skills training. So whether this is training for things like the handstand, the planche, the front lever, pressed handstand, all of those skill kind of elements that you see in bodyweight and calisthenics training that has come from gymnastics. A lot of the questions were about developing that, so I'm going to choose some of the key points. I'm going to take a deep dive into skills training 101, and hopefully I should be able to answer all of your questions. Question number one comes from Larson. He basically asks, how much time do you spend a week doing flexibility and strength training? He tells me about what he's currently doing. He says, how consistent do I actually need to be when it comes to chasing things like the one arm handstand and side splits? But he basically says, how do you know how much to do? How do you know if you're plateauing? To answer this question, I'm going to share with you what I do personally. I personally do 2 upper body and 2 lower body days a week. That's kind of my strength training, is all encompassed in those 4 sessions, which you're going to see the upper body session today. Alongside that, I do 3, maybe 4 handstand sessions a week, usually as well on those upper body days along with my rest days. And that kind of seems to be the sweet spot for me for handstands. And then for mobility wise, I have loaded mobility days on my lower body, and then I do some grease the groove, doing through some standard mobility stuff, you know, like I am now, sat in a squat, just using the range of motion throughout the week to grease the groove. That's what I found for me personally is kind of the sweet spot. You may need a little bit more, you may need a little bit less, but that's kind of a good starting point. So this actually kind of leads me into the next question, which is from Ilyas Faridi. I'm so bad at names, I'm sorry. He asked basically skill training, volume, or frequency specifically for the planche, based on the answer to the last question. 2 times a week, intense strength-based training for skills. So that would be things like you're going to see later in today's upper body session. And then alongside that, you might want to do some greasing the groove or some lighter work throughout the week to kind of help work those neurological pathways and keep things moving in the right direction. So that's kind of what I'd recommend. What are you doing, mate? I don't know what I've just started. The next question comes from Itrav95, and he says, you may have answered this question in previous videos, but do you think dynamic straight arm movements are superior to static holds for obtaining skills? So this is going to apply to things like the front lever, the planche, maybe even like the pressed handstand, all of those sort of things. And I'm going to answer it very simply. Yes, I do think dynamics are better at improving strength when it comes to static skills. There are times where you want to train static skills in a static way, but most of the time, and you'll see again in my training later on, when I'm doing my front lever training, I'll be doing front lever pulls or a variant of, instead of doing just front lever static holds. And that's because it generally is better for improving those skills. So when it comes to the planche, working things like planche presses or planche negatives from a handstand, and when it comes to the front lever, like I mentioned in my front lever tutorial, working things like pulls is, generally speaking, going to give you better results. And that's what I do personally, it's what I do with clients. So, you know, there you are. The last question comes from Matty Luengo, and he says, how can you maintain a difficult skill like the planche front lever while gaining muscle and training other skills? Well, to be quite honest with you, if you've used the tips I've just given you and you've attained those skills, then when it comes to maintaining it takes a lot less effort to maintain something. And what you have to understand is this kind of concept of free gain. So for example, if I am training the planche, there is a likelihood that that will also give me some improved strength to achieve things like the pressed handstand. And if I'm training for, you know, the front lever, that's likely going to increase my pull-up as well, and vice versa. So you understand there's kind of some crossover here when we're talking about skills training. So if you have achieved a skill and then you're moving on to something else, you can either A, put it kind of at the end of your workout, put it on maintenance, do a little bit less volume and focus on other things, or you can focus on skills that are similar. You'll probably maintain the strength that you already have in that skill, or because it's a similar kind of pattern that you're going to be training, you might actually find that you get better at that skill although you haven't actually trained it. So that'd be my advice to you. Do less volume, put it at the end of your session, and put the stuff you want to achieve as a primary objective at the start, and try to train like-minded skills. On a side note, another question that I get asked a lot is, what tracksuit bottoms do I wear? And I'm talking about these, you can't see them, but the tracksuit bottoms that I'm currently wearing, and I also usually train with, and they are from a company called Ardor, which you've probably heard about on this channel before. I've worked with them loads. I've been over to Belfast. They're a really nice bunch of guys, and they make some very clean clothing. I literally worn them for like 2 years, mainly because they gave me a pair and then they stopped making them, and they're just like the perfect fit. But that may all change because I got this package in the post today from my boys at Ardor. Firstly, thanks to Ardor. This isn't a paid video, this isn't a sponsored video, but at the same time, I didn't pay for these clothes, so take that as you will. Second, I just want to mention one very important thing when it comes to tracky bottoms, and the reason why I love these. One is they fit really nicely. They're like actually tight, but also stretchy, so you can do splits and all those sort of things. Second is they have freaking zips, which is so important. The amount of times where I've gone up into a handstand, I've had my phone in my pocket and I've just seen this phone fly past the side of my face and hit the floor because I haven't got zips on my pockets. So zip pockets, essential if you're a hand balancer. That being said, got some orders to post. I'm also going to go train in the gym. We got a handstand session and an upper body session. Fun times. As I mentioned in the previous vlog, I always start my sessions with some banded mobility and activation work. Again, if you want to grab yourself some bands, I'll link them down below. I always start off with mobilizations first, generally looking at overhead stuff because I'm going to be working the handstand, and then I move into some activation stuff with the extra light resistance band. But as I said, if you want some more info on that, I will link the previous vlog down below. The main change with the hand balancing session is that I finally started adding in fingertip support holds, which is something that I haven't quite been good enough yet to get enough out of them, and because I'm still relatively inconsistent, it's kind of on the edge, but I've been shooting for 10-second fingertip support holds with 5 fingers on each side, and then just doing that for sets. And I've been managing kind of 5 to 7 seconds relatively comfortably, but because of the intensity, and like this is something that I mentioned before, like doing one-arm handstand, there's a lot of strength involved as well as balance, but sometimes you do manage to get kind of a glimpse of what it's going to be like in the future with a very delayed kind of few second fall in today's session. After I did the handstand work at the beginning of the session, I moved on to pretty much the same upper body session as I've covered previously, so I'm going to run through this pretty quickly. I started with the Z press. Again, the only difference here is that I'm working a little bit of a lower rep range, working on that progressive overload each time you step in the gym, trying to do more weight, more reps, going for roughly 6 to 7 reps here, and between 50 and 52.5 kilos in terms of weight moved. And this was paired with front lever pulls. Now, the way that you would adjust intensity of weight is you add more weight on, but when it comes to static and bodyweight skills, it's kind of hard to adjust that. So with a front lever, it's all about changing the body position and progression. So originally I was working 8 to 9 reps and I was doing that in a tuck position, whereas now, because I'm looking to do less repetitions and make it harder, I'm working more of a half lay. So if those of you who are struggling to gauge kind of intensity of exercises, that's the easiest way to do it, is just to modify the lever. That's how you make bodyweight exercises harder. Then, for some reason, because we were talking about skills training today, I decided to try a couple of planche attempts, which is something I haven't trained for over 6 months, and this kind of notion of free gains that surprisingly ended up with me being stronger than I was 6 months ago, despite the fact that I've got a torn supraspinatus and some injuries to my shoulder as well. So it's always nice to find out that you've gained some strength somewhere. Then apart from that, the session was the same as last time. Weighted push-ups combined with some diamond push-ups, then some weighted pull-ups combined with some reverse dumbbell flies. Just a couple of supersets for both that pushing and pulling movements. Then for the rotator cuff work today, I basically worked Cuban presses using a barbell. One of my favorite rotator cuff exercises, simply because it is great at improving both the mobility of internal rotation, but also really strengthening those external rotators. So this is one of my favorite external rotator cuff exercises for that combined mobility and strengthening element.
Finally finishing out the session with a quad set for the arms and kind of chest, starting with some dumbbell planche presses. This exercise is actually something that I haven't used too much, but I definitely saw a lot of gymnasts when I was at university using it, and it's kind of a nice deloaded way to still work, as I said earlier, that neurological pathway that is the planche. And then also it gives some great tendon conditioning because you can give some more time under tension. So just pressing literally like 4 kilo dumbbells, but just keeping the reps nice and slow. That was then paired straight to some incline dumbbell curls, just for the biceps, because who doesn't love doing biceps? And then I moved straight on into some overhead tricep extensions, again just using the same weight and pretty much no rest in between. And then finally finishing up with a dumbbell lat pullover, and this one is kind of like a burnout for the triceps because it does use that as an element, but also as an active mobilizer for the shoulders, working that shoulder flexion position. But that was basically the workout. As always guys, this full workout is in the description down below if you want to go check it out. But back to the vlog.
Post-workout, banana milk, a little bit of chocolate whey, a little bit of creatine, kind of makes a banana chocolate milkshake. Just need something high glycemic post-workout, so there's a fair bit of sugar in that. And then the main meal is this, it's the ground beef with some onion, garlic, purple sweet potato, and then some kale underneath, avocado oil on top. Just as I mentioned in the meal prep video last week, got the protein sauce, got the carb sauce, got the veg sauce, that buffet style. I'll put the macros for this on screen. I have no idea what they are, but if you're interested, you might be interested in what I'm kind of going for post-workout. It is here. Yeah, anyway, eat this, do some work, catch you in a bit. Back from the gym, back from the surprise planche gains. I can't actually quite believe that I managed to get like a 3-second pike straddle hold. I literally haven't trained it for over 6 months, and I've also had a torn supraspinatus in between, so I have no idea. That is a perfect example of what I was talking about when it comes to free gains earlier in that skills section of the Q&A. But it is now like actually 7 o'clock because I just ended up working for ages at the gym and kind of got carried away. So I'm gonna have to end the vlog here. If you did enjoy that Q&A part, why not let me know in the comment section down below. Leave a question if you have any more, or if you want to suggest another topic for the next episode of Bodyweight Basics, why not do that? Join the conversation in the comment section down below. You can also hit that thumbs up button and support the channel. If you want to grab some of this Ardor kind of merch, I'll put a link to the release, which I think is tomorrow as I record this video, the 16th of March, so you can go check that out. But that has been it for this week, guys. I'll catch you in the next episode. Have a strong week, and peace.